how are you? Today I just woke up and I was wondering what I will do, and I remembered something, and I thought maybe the thing has been disturbing some people. Maybe if I come up with something that can educate maybe people concerning the matter, it will be good. Okay, yesterday I met a fellow who was having some troubles maybe understanding state management, and I thought maybe if I come up with something maybe to, because it has been a concern also to people who are front-end developers enthusiasts. It has been a concern, so I thought of maybe coming up with a small video maybe to demonstrate using something like asynchronous thanks, which is very important in programming, also for front-end developers. It is very important for many reasons, and some of the reasons include handling side effects, decoupling logic from UI, that is separating logic from the UI, steady transitions during async operations. Then we have something like error handling, that is when it comes to something like network failure when you are calling your API. Then we have something like improved debugging. Improved debugging is something like when you are using a tool which I'm using for, you can use something like Zustan or Jotai, but I'm using something like Redux Toolkit. It is very important for something we call single source of truth. Redux advocates for single source of truth and something like composable logic. So when you're using something like asynchronous thanks, calling your APIs through maybe state management, using something like asynchronous thanks, it's very good for something like composable logic, implementing composable logic. So I came up with the two slides. One is a to-do slide. No, I came up with two slides. One is a user slide. This is the user slide. This one I use create a sync thank. Then I came up with a to-do slides. This one is just a normal way we do things. We do state management. So I came up with something like I came up with a store. Here is the store. This one is the store, and I registered the reducer here. There's a to-do slash reducer, user slash reducer. Then of course I'm using Typescript. I came and with a certain folder whereby I defined my types here. I generally used interfaces, export interface address. Here's something like company to do state. That, but generally I was working on JSON typical API. This JSON typical.com users. I was working on this data. When you look at this data, we have this data, we have this, generally this, we have this data here. So you have something like ID name, this. So I used this data, and that's why I have separated. Separating something like a user, whereby I defined the type of something like ID name, username, email address, street, city, zip code. But for something like address, I had to define a interface separately to handle address. Then I also had to define an interface to handle something like company, this company here, and this is the interface. So if I come and check the address here, this is the address. Then if I have the company here, then I have now the user, the total user now, this one, this. So I had to separate that. I also came up with the features. Now for the slides and the user slides, I placed them inside the features, and for I implemented one selector, maybe something to help in selecting the to-dos. That. Then of course I came up with the two pages, upper.tsx. I came up with two pages. That one is a to-do page, then a users page, and everything is working. So state management is quite easy, although sometimes it gives people some stress if you are not maybe such good with the front end maybe. Of course I used Tailwind to to come up with a quicker UI. I used this Tailwind. I came up with a to-do component, add to do. This one is a component to add to do, then to-do list. This one will just display the list of the to-dos. Then I came up with something like a to-do page. This one is a to-do page. A to-do page, and I call it the add to do component, then to-do list component. Then I have something like a users page. This one. So now for these users, instead of junking the logic of calling the UI together with the junking the logic of calling the API, the data from the net together with the UI, sometimes it brings a lot of issues, and bearing in mind the advantages of maybe separating the UI from the logic, which is quite advocated by Angular. The separation of concerns is very good. So using something like asynchronous thanks when you are calling your data from the network, it's very good. Also when you are doing something like decoupling of logic from the UI and state transitions during async operation, something like fulfilled, paid-in, rejected, like user slice. This one, like this user slice, we have something like state transitions, state.loading, fulfilled, state.loading error. So it's quite very important when you are doing this, when you are doing separation of logic from the UI. Now, if I now come to this, for storing the to-dos, I was just interested with the demonstrating how the thing works. I was not interested with working with something like local storage, although it's quite interesting and very easy. Now if I come here and I say I want to cook, scarce added, running, maybe something like running, maybe something like eating. Yeah, it's quite, and you can maybe toggle, like this, you can maybe cancel. You can also, so I did that. If I come and say maybe for the to-do list, I come and search to-do list here. Come and search to-do list, and I say this toggle here, I'm not interested with it being toggle. This toggle I'm not interested. So if I come and maybe say if to-do.completed is equals to true, if to-do.completed is equals to true, then I'll say uncomplete or undo, then I can come here and say completed, because the toggle does not make sense, something like that. So if I maybe add running, something like running, I will run maybe something like 4 p.m. running, maybe eating. No, it's supposed to be complete, something like complete, that way. Then I have something like eating. I have something like visiting the sick, because I'm a Christian. Visiting the sick. I have something like visiting the sick, like that, the sick, and I add it like that. Then I can come out, pause and complete that one, complete. Then if I had forgotten, I can undo, But that's quite interesting with how state management works. It's not hard, it's just understanding the key. Now if I come now here to demonstrate how asynchronous thanks works in state management, if I click, you see this data has been fetched from this API, this JSON placeholder API, this API. So you see, it's very important when it comes to debugging errors. If I come here to look for something like user slice, this user slice here, can come here and say maybe state.error, action.error, that way state users is equals to action.payload. You can come and maybe display the errors here. You can see proper state transitionings. If I maybe come for the users page like that, and I see, you can actually see, I just called the API from from our user slides instead of maybe junking the logic together with the UI. So that's all with the user state management. It's not something which is very hard. It's all about